Hello, everybody. If you're watching this on the replay, which probably most of you will do, then oh my god, this is amazing! Got 5 people here already. I didn't even know if anyone would turn up, so this is pretty cool. Hello. Please say hello in the comments, and then I can see who these people are. Whoa, turn that off. Hello. I have that one on because I can sometimes see the comments a lot better. Although I am going to have my glasses on for a lot of this because I'm going to be reading. Hi, Aaron. Thanks for popping in. This is awesome. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous doing this, to be fair. I don't think I'm a natural reader of reading out loud of certainly my own material, definitely. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous that I'll do this okay. I wouldn't be nervous if I was singing, but I am definitely nervous for doing this. So I'll give you an explanation about why I'm doing it, and I'll give you some context for the book, and I'll do some reading. So I figured that I needed to promote the books because it's all very well that you can self-publish stuff, and you can put things out there now quite easily, but ultimately it's just sitting there in a sea of millions of other things, and nobody sees it. Blah 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 blah. You got to do your own promotion, and hi, this is so cool. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Erie. Hi, Brian. And to do the promotion, obviously, well, I go out sometimes, and I've got like a stall that I use sometimes because there's a local author community, and we go out and sell our stuff on market sometimes, which is great. And I do mention it on the channel sometimes, but I don't want to mention it too much. I think people don't really like that. So, oh wow, yeah, cool. So Aaron's about to read Itch. I that's been received well, which is nice. Itch is a very creepy story. So I do that, but I feel like no one could really. The thing about this book, right, the Brown Yelp Game, my last novel. The thing about this book, I am absolutely racked with imposter syndrome. I've already laid out the plot for the sequel, and I've bought the cover as well, and I've had it for years, and because I've got this imposter syndrome, I can't start it. I'm always thinking, what's the point? You're not a writer. Why do you think you're a writer? And I wrote this in 2019, so it's about time I did the sequel. I know what the sequel is going to be about. It should be really ridiculous and funny, like this one is, and I know when I wrote this, I really enjoyed the process of reading it. I was giggling to myself while I was writing it, and I feel like it's different. I feel like it's a different kind of book to anything else I know. It's well, I'll explain what it is in a second, but I will say that the characters came from here. So this was my first book, my 10 short stories, 10 Tales of Transformation, and in the book, the longest story is a story about the Brown Yelp Gang, and they're a band from 5 different planets, all 5, well, actually 4 different planets because 2 of them are from the same place, but the 5 members are from different planets, and I kind of played around with that because if you look at the cover of the novel, that's that's Trent, who's the singer, but he's got 3 heads, so he can do 3 bar harmonies by himself. And Deet is the drummer, but uses his body to drum because it's kind of it's like a symbiote inside him. And that's Lazy Riff, who I basically use to rip into all the guitarists I've known all my life, and some of my guitarists as well. And then I can't even see that's Plaque and DK, who are kind of brass players. Essentially, that's what the sound that comes out of their bodies, their snouts. So the brass bits are actually their snout. Let me see that. So the setup's ridiculous anyway, but I did have a lot of fun creating this plot, which is where they basically get involved with gangsters. So when I start reading this, I'll give you. I'm not going to read it from the beginning. I'm going to read it from chapter 2. Chapter 1 is setting up the initial part of the plot. It gets derailed and it goes into a different plot. But at first, they're basically their manager, Jenkins James. He owes a gangster a lot of money. So this gangster has kidnapped Plaque, who's the tall one of these. Well, I hate doing this backwards. Yeah, he's the tall one out of these guys. He's kidnapped him and he's threatened to kill him if he doesn't give him his money back. So Jenkins James tells the band they've got to go on this ridiculous, overworked tour to get this money back to pay the gangster, and then that's just how it starts, and then it goes off in another direction. So I'm going to try and read this. I can tell you what. So earlier, this is an irrelevant anecdote, but it's just bothering me. Somehow earlier, it must have been in the last hour or so, I've bit my lip, and I don't remember doing it, which is really disturbing. I don't remember it, and it's really weird. It feels really strange. Anyway, I feel like I should put these up as well. So you got Aaron there first, and then Brian came up, and Erie said hi. Oops. And gave me a bit of support. I've got this on backwards because I'm testing the battery as well, because my battery ran out in the last issue, the last episode of me and Dave's show. So I'm testing a different way of doing it, which means that for now, my finger's going to be on the screen whenever I'm putting them up. Yeah, hi Courtney, hi Aaron. So yeah, I did do there is a story of mine in Garbology, which is called Itch, which is like a body horror thing. So yeah, here we go. Just got to do it, and I just got to take the leap. I am definitely nervous though. Hold on. Daffy Duck. Okay. Eyes on. Chapter 2. So so he's just sorted. So Jenkins James, the manager, has just sorted out this deal where he's basically promised Carlo DeMarco, the gangster, that he's going to pay his money back because he doesn't want Plaque to die. Right, chapter 2 starts. When they first escaped the security force on Casilia, which is a reference to this story, after the Dengen plant incident had become too intense to deal with, they commandeered a small freighter ship to use as a vehicle to get out of Casilia as fast as they could. They crossed the system boundary with the aid of a scary-looking wormhole that they tried turning back from once they got too close to change course. Their initial fear of dying from the journey was unfounded, and in fact, the next 2 years of gigging and travelling through this newly discovered star system was mostly positive. There was the odd hiccup, sometimes with an occasional lost instrument, or with the regular pressure on Jenkins James to get the more elaborate, ambitious gigs. The biggest recent issue they had was a problem now resolved where Lazy Riff disappeared for a few weeks. Seduced by a Venusian woman with hypnotic telepathy in her arsenal of lust, they were saved by the coincidence that the gigs for those weeks were in smaller venues, so they pretended they were stripping down the sound for artistic reasons. Then every morning they would frantically resume the search for their missing guitarist. This was a few months ago, and they were now feeling back on an even keel. Plaque, having been missing from the group, was not an immediate concern, as Elsa had kidnapped him from a visit he had made to the local supply store. The Brown Yelp Gang was a tight group of musicians from different star systems who are now like a small, unique family. Their lead singer, Trent, with his Calpian forthrightness and the ego that gave him the confidence to lead a band, was often the most vocal about the band situation. His Calpian physiology sometimes created issues of clarity with his three heads arguing with themselves over the slightest thing. The biggest bugbear for the left and right heads being that nobody seemed to care what they thought. For them, it was always about the middle head. Being in the business for a number of years didn't lessen that annoyance. Despite this, when they sang harmony together, it was glorious. It was ultimately the kind of perfect harmony you would get from someone sharing the same body. This was, of course, only one of the many characteristics that made the Brown Yelp Gang so legendary across many different star systems. The guitarist, Lazy Riff, was one of those musicians that men wanted to be and women wanted to nurse. His wayward, free-spirited days in the early days of the band were being shaved into submission by the presence of his new love, Aria, the flute-playing Danubian priestess. They were inseparable. For the rest of the band, they enjoyed the fillet fish that Aria seemed to have an endless supply of, who weren't always sold on her musical decisions. When she played in a different key to the rest of them, Riff would insist that the dissonance was part of the writing of the song. Clearly, plying the band with hallucinogenic fish was an easy way to pacify them. The one member of the band who wouldn't have been manipulated with mind-altering food was Plack, who had missed the last fillet fish gathering as he was helplessly detained somewhere by Elsie Grabberknot. Plack would have refused the fillet fish and would have been very vocal about her mistakes. In fact, it became a source of frustration for him that he could hear the mistakes and the rest of the band couldn't, even hours after Aria served them their dinner. Plack's absence was sorely felt by the whole band, and backstage there was a situation brewing that Jenkins couldn't ignore. DK had been looking for Plack all day to go through some of the songs again. He was particularly concerned about the song Kiss Your Proboscis, as they hadn't performed that or rehearsed it in several years. That featured a significant harmony from the both of them that would sound ineffectual with just DK's phrase. Movines were a species of pear-shaped bipeds whose smooth, hairless skin covered a body that led to a long, protruding snout that acted as their instruments. At the end of the snouts were small flaps of skin that vibrated when the Movines made a sound. This acted like a double reed, and through these great snouts, fluid wind music was produced. The synchronicity of both Movine lines together was a potent thing to hear, and DK felt vulnerable and ordinary without Plack. As DK started to panic, it was clear that Jenkins would have to admit to what had happened to Plack, and his resolve to get him back. It was the first day on the Return to Cassilia tour, a tour designed entirely to see if they could get away with coming back to the system they escaped from those years ago. So far, they hadn't had any heat from the Cassilian security, which is a very good sign. In fact, the signs were so positive with the way they were being treated by everyone, from the mechanics at the space dock to the staff at the venue, that the band began to forget about the Dengen plant incident and the subsequent hunt for them entirely. This created a very relaxed atmosphere backstage. The band was starting their tour of Cassilia with a medium-sized venue that only held 50,000 beings on any one night. This was medium-sized on Cassilia, as some venues were huge floating cities above the capital. The venue was called the Atomic Wombat and had an enviable reputation. The band had been there since the early morning, milling about waiting for the sound check. DK had been frantically contacting anyone he could to get some answers about Plack, and Jenkins was avoiding them, trying to think of the best way to get the money as quick as possible so that Plack could be freed. Deet was the band's drummer, a particularly talented and ambitious native of the beautiful planet Hurl. He was a symbiotic twin. Both of these twins became the drummer, Deet. The insides of the larger host was freakishly grown to be even more resonant than most of the Hurl people. They were known for the power of their percussive chests, but Deet's host possessed a reverberating chest that rang out well beyond what was expected on this planet. This is partly why he was such a star on Hurl. On a planet where the native population could naturally create rhythm from their chests, Deet was capable of surpassing any other Hurl musician with the power of his drumming. Deet was the first one to notice how close they were to the sound check time. "Where's DK? We need to sound check before the hour's up," Deet said to Lazy Riff, Aria, and Teddy, who were the only people in the large green room with him. "Where's Trent anyway?" Aria added, compounding the issue. Riff looked up from his noodling on the guitar as his wife spoke. "Hey guys, I've spent today delving into the blues. I found a lovely little thing here. Have a listen." Riff, oblivious to the questions about the band's members' whereabouts, played the blues progression he was working on that day. The others ignored him, looking at their watches to try and send messages out to locate Trent, DK, and Plack. "It's a blues song I'm calling You Blinded Me With Love and Now I Can't Find You. I think it's a goer." They were still ignoring him and still checking for replies and sending more messages out. Riff looked around the room, aware that he was being ignored. "Hey," he explained with a start. "Where are Plack, DK, and Trent?" Deet looked up with a sigh. "That's why I asked you a minute ago, Riff." "Yeah, sure," Riff scoffed and returned to his blues song on the guitar. "We can't sound check without them," Aria said, concerned about the lack of response from the messages. "Nope, this is annoying though. Our first gig in this system and we've already got this bullshit." Deet was happy to vent, feeling helpless to find them. "Why don't we just call them?" Teddy said, with the typical mechanical logic you would expect from her. She's a robot. Tried that. Plack and DK aren't answering, and Trent was his watch here in this room. Deep pointed to one of the tables in the green room where Trent's communication watch was lying. He turned to Riff again. Riff, what do you think? Riff looked up again from his guitar. I think it could break up the set a bit of blues. We haven't done anything like that for a while. It might be very 20th century, but people like that kind of thing. What? Deep raised his voice, exasperated by Riff's answer. All right, mate, steady, Riff said, taken aback by Deep's angry tone. He turned to his right, where Arya was standing. What's got into him then? Riff, we are missing some people here, and we need to sound check. Arya was beginning to get annoyed herself. Before the conversation could develop any further, Jenkins ran in with his usual energetic, enthusiastic manner. Hi, guys, how are we doing? He was smiling at all of them and clapping his hands and rubbing them like it would somehow make them spring into action. Where is Trent? Deep said, killing the mood with his blunt delivery. Trent is on his way up, mate. It's all good. He had to do an errand for me. DK? Deep asked. He's on his way up. He'll be here in a second, Jenkins replied. And Plack? Arya asked with a similar tone of not being impressed. Ah, Jenkins' tone changed. That's a different story. I'll tell you about that when Trent gets up here. He looked sheepish, but fully intended to tell them everything once Trent and DK had returned to the room. Just make sure you're ready to get on stage in a minute for the sound check. His words were greeted with a collective huff, which he heard but stayed focused. I'm making a Jacadian tea. Anyone want one? Jenkins asked the room as he mixed his own tea. Arya and Deep mumbled a decline while Riff was more willing. I'll have some of that, Jenks, Riff said exuberantly. That will wake me up after burying myself in the blues for hours. Riff laughed as he said this, amused by his own retro morning. Talking of the blues, Riff, Jenkins replied. Do you guys ever think of doing that song from the first album, Hole in the Hole? That was a great song, that, and I don't think you've ever done it live, have you? Jenks, mate, we've never done it because it's ridiculous, Riff replied. It's impossible for us to do it live, Deep chimed in. Trent barely managed it in the studio. The delay setting is set for each note to be repeated for 15 minutes. He got totally confused. Yeah, it was quite funny, actually. Riff started laughing, remembering the long recording sessions with Trent trying to remember where he was in the song. Hole, 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 hole. Riff couldn't contain his laughter. Deep was also smiling at the ludicrous nature of the song. Do you remember the a cappella section in it? Deep turned to Riff, still smiling. Yeah, it was that poem, wasn't it? A poem that Plack wrote, I think. Deep frowned as he tried to remember. That's right, it was a poem about holes, Riff said, smiling. He wrote a poem about holes, Arya said, with an unconvinced tone to her voice. Only Plack would write a poem about holes, Deep replied, shaking his head, smiling. Where did you say he was again, Jenkins? Deep asked again. I was just... Jenkins was interrupted by Trent and DK returning to the green room. Trent whispered something to Jenkins, then grabbed a towel and headed for the bathroom. Hold on, Trent. I need to speak to all of you about Plack. Jenkins sounded nervous. Just noticed the comment. Where have I? I've just lost it. DK found a seat beside Riff and sat forward, eager to hear about his friend and partner in the band. Trent turned around and waited, halting his stride into the bathroom. They all looked at Jenkins with bated breath. Perhaps you should all sit down. He motioned to the chairs that were dotted around the tables in front of them. What's going on, Jenkins? Deep asked more sternly. Is Plack okay? Arya asked, concerned. Not really, Jenkins said. What the hell has happened to him? Trent became animated very quickly. It's the past coming back to bite me. Plack is suffering because of something I did. That doesn't make sense. You've done something to Plack? Riff had put his guitar down on the floor next to him, something he rarely did. No, it's not something I've done to Plack. It's something related to what I did once. It would be clearer if you just said it, Mr. James. Teddy had a point. There is no substitute for just saying it. Yeah, okay. Jenkins took a deep intake of breath and then exhaled. Plack is held somewhere, chained up somewhere. I don't know where. It's some kind of threat that I need to clear a debt or he'll suffer. The band was shocked. You could hear a pin drop in the room. Trent was the first to break the silence. What was the debt? It was 40,000 credits. They all gasped audibly. DK was silently boiling over, just about containing his anger. 40,000 credits? Bloody hell, Riff explained. Who do you owe 40,000 credits to? Deep asked with a tone of incredulity to his words. That's the thing. Jenkins didn't want to say it out loud. What's the thing? Trent asked impatiently. I can't think of anyone worse, Jenkins said, with a resigned tone. He was feeling terrible, revealing this to the band, especially knowing that Plack was in the middle of all of this, vulnerable and probably terrified. Just tell us, man, Riff pleaded. Okay, I owe that money to, he hesitated for a moment, nervous to finish off the sentence, Carlo DeMarco. You're kidding, Deep gasped. Lazy Riff whistled, showing his astonishment. Trent was more concerned about the consequences. Hold on, you're saying that Plack is tied up somewhere in mortal danger because you owe a stupid amount of money to Carlo DeMarco? Trent's voice could be heard from the stage below them. Yes, that's true, Jenkins said humbly. Wow, Trent said, sitting down and throwing his towel across the room. That's quite something, Pete said. You've endangered the life of one of the band for one of your pointless, dodgy deals. DK was keeping his anger under control, but speaking out now. Look, guys, this is bad. I know it's bad, but we can sort this out. We need to get the money together, and then Plack will be fine. Jenkins had a pleading tone to his voice. How am I going to do my bits in the song without Plack? DK shouted directly at Jenkins. I can reproduce his parts amongst the sounds I'm creating, DK, Teddy replied, reassuring him with her technical wizardry. Great, we're going even more electronic now, Riff scoffed, completely dismissing the help Teddy was offering. It's fine. That would be a great help, Teddy, thank you, DK declared, aiming the words mostly at Riff. Get this gig done and we'll get a plan together for getting the money and getting Plack back, Jenkins said, with his instructor-manager voice. He then left the room, going outside to make some calls. Riff, DK, Teddy, and Aria went downstairs to the stage area, with Riff taking his equipment with him in an unfeasibly awkward trolley. And in this trolley were several guitars, an effects board that featured 24 effects pedals, and his own makeshift theremin. The tech crew had taken all the amps and monitors out of the ship and onto the stage earlier that morning. Trent followed on after his quick trip into the bathroom to freshen up. As he reached the stage area, he asked Deep from the back of the stage, "Who have we got opening for us tonight?" "Oh, God, you wouldn't believe it," Deep said with a frustrated tone. "What? Who is it?" Trent was intrigued. "You heard of Malatane Malacus III? You're joking." "Nope, that's who it is, one before us. That miserable bastard will make everyone walk out. I don't get it. Why do people want to listen to him?" I know. Trent was as annoyed as Deep was. I feel for the guy, the last remaining person of his whole species, all wiped out by occupation and war. Yeah, I feel for the guy too, Deep agreed. But every song is about his species being killed off. It's like he's asking for the same thing that happened to him. They both laughed at Deep's poor taste. He's a great lutist, though, Trent offered. Is that a word? Yeah, it's a word. That's good. And I agree, he can play that little string thing well. Just as well, really, considering his songs. Trent concluded. They both laughed. I'll do a couple more pages. I don't know if this is going down right. Where am I? Then they all took up their positions on stage to begin the sound check. Trent was at the front with his microphone, his three heads sharing the one mic for the visual effect. Deep was lying down on the backboard riser he had propped up so he could be able to see the audience as he beat his chest. Riff was plugging into his effects board stage right. DK was stage left, getting his microphone position to capture the melodic lines coming from his snout. Ari was behind him, positioning her microphone correctly for her flute, and Teddy was plugging himself into the PA system, standing beside Deep at the back. After the sound engineer had checked that everything was coming through the PA correctly, he motioned for them to test the song out. Teddy began the ambient sounds of the introduction to We're Back and We're Livid. As the music from Teddy's circuitry swelled into a sustained crescendo, DK and Riff burst forth with the song's main melody. Deep came in 4 bars later and the band sounded bombastic and perfectly in time. Trent's three heads all smiled at each other and began the vocal refrain that never fails to get the crowd chanting, "We're back, we're livid, whatever, we'll live it." As the song reverberated around the hall of the concert venue, the Brown Yelp Gang settled into their own new songs again, looking forward to showing them to the old crowd in Corsilia. I think I'm going to leave it there. So there we are. That's how chapter 2 starts. They do their first gig, and then things get complicated after their first gig. So, hi, Diane's here. Hi, Diane. Thanks for popping in. I'll take this off. Although saying that, it helped me to read it, to be fair. Constance says, I've been read to. Thank you. This is a bit mad that I've done it so that my fingers are on the screen, but oh well. You blinded me with love, and now I can't find you. One of my favourite things in the book, and I do it a lot, is I make up lots of ridiculous song titles. The album, the album that they're touring is called Warm and Tasty, and it has got lots of ridiculous song titles, and some of the other bands that they meet along the way are a bit ridiculous as well. So here's that to go. So thanks for popping in. So there we are. I think I managed to do that without a hitch. I think there's a couple of times when well, I don't know if I should have read slower. I think I probably should have read slower, but I don't know. I feel like it's a different kind of book. I don't know any other book. There was a book that came out after while I was finishing that book by Catherine Valente called Space Opera, and it's Eurovision Song Contest in space. So it's kind of drawing humor from bands in a science fiction setting. But I read it and I didn't even find it funny. So I thought the thing I thought was that she spent so long telling the joke in each sentence that the timing was gone, and there was it just really fell flat for me. So I read it in case I'd accidentally put some jokes in there that were similar to hers, and then obviously she's a proper published author, so I'd have to change mine. But there was no similarity in the end anyway, so that was all right. Thank you, Diane. So Diane gave me a thumbs up. That's cool. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's the only thing I can think of that's closest to that kind of thing. And then there was a moment in one of the Hitchhiker's books where there was a band. It might be at the restaurant at the end of the universe. I can't remember, but there was a band playing at one point in that series of books. I think it's in the second book, but I can't remember the details of what happened there. But the way that the plot works and the way that I've characterized the characters, I just feel like it's a bit different. So I felt like I wanted to do some publicity for it because it's just sitting there in this sea of obscurity. And this was, like the big issue with self-publishing is being able to afford an editor or or getting it properly proofread and stuff like that. And this one has been properly proofread. I know that my first novel, I need to read it again, really, because Michael K. Vaughan read it and was very lovely about it. He gave it a lovely, very positive review, but he did say there was a moment in the text that didn't make sense, so I need to check that. But this has been thoroughly proofread, so I know that when I was going to read it, I knew that there wouldn't be any bits where I'd get confused. So yeah, if you felt like that was entertaining, and you feel like you want to sort of find out more about Lazy Riff, Trent, DK, Plaque, the kidnapped Plaque, and Deet on drums, and their really unreliable and chaotic manager Jenkins James. Oh, and Aria and Teddy. Aria and Teddy are two characters I've added to this book. So Aria and Teddy weren't in the story No Sleep Till Corsilia, which is in this book. So it was just the five of them, but I added Aria and Teddy because I've in the book I play around a lot with Lazy Riff and Aria's relationship. Aria kind of rolls her eyes a lot about his ineptitude, and Teddy. I put Teddy in there, who's a female robot, and does like lots of like electro keyboard kind of stuff. I wanted to put some sort of parodies of that kind of thing, that kind of music and stuff in there. So that's why, and that's why Teddy and Aria are added. So it's quite a big band, and that's actually two young female characters as well that get added in the mix. So they're not members of the band, but they end up getting involved in the plot with these this other gangster. So Jenkins James owes this money, and Plaque is kidnapped because he's essentially saying you can't have Black back until you give me the money, and if you don't give me the money, I'm going to kill him. So one of the band members is at risk of being killed by this gangster, but then they end up working with this other gangster, and then this other gangster reveals this very serious, dangerous plot with this other music promoter, and it kind of gets a bit James Bondy. It's such a ridiculous book, but it's intended to make you laugh, and you know, you could hear there's a couple times where I laughed when I was reading it, so clearly it worked for me. So yeah, I do need to, but I'll tell you what though, I need to read. The reason why, as I said earlier, I do have this imposter syndrome, which is why I haven't written the sequel yet, even though I wrote this 5 years ago. I should have done it by now, but I keep putting it off. But actually, just having read some of that just then, I only read a few pages really, but I could carry on and make some notes and try and get the sequel written, because I know the sequel is about the band split up and Trent does a solo project and they have to replace Trent, but they replace Trent with these sirens that are stealing songs. So yeah, that's, and there's also, I was going to put another plot in there about Lazy Riff. Anyway, I just checked with the messages. So Christopher even starts here. Hi Chris, thanks for popping in. Thanks for reading it. Just caught the end. That sounds fun. That's cool. Thank you. Go and watch the rest of it when it starts. It's actually quite a short stream, to be fair. Arsenal have lost and kiss my proboscis. Yeah, I mean, I did have a lot of fun writing the song titles. It's got to be said. And there's like there's other bands that also got ridiculous song titles as well. It ends up the big climax. I don't think I'm going to spoil that much because it's a comedy thing, so it doesn't really. But it does end up the big climax of the big battle at the end of the book occurs at a music festival. So I do. There's lots of parodies of music festivals in it as well. So I've played at a lot of music festivals. So there's little things I mentioned in that, and you know, sound checking. There's some things that I know well about sound checking, and I just use the science fiction element to kind of exaggerate the ridiculousness. I mean, they play on an ice planet at one point, and their gear gets frozen. I imagine that would be a problem if you play on a nice planet. So there we are, the Brownie Out Gang. I've read some of it. I don't know. Hopefully that went down well. Please tell me if that's a good idea. I'm not confident about reading, so if you thought the reading bit was fine, I could do more of that. My first short story collection, so the only short story collection, but my first book, the one that was a short story collection, I have the Ethel Pinchworthy story, the one that the cover is of, which is the most popular story. There is one of my friends did Sharon. She's got this amazing voice, and she did a reading of the story, and that's on my channel. So the story is called Whatever Happened to Ethel Pinchworthy. And if you look that up on my channel, you can listen. It's about 20 minutes long. You can listen to my friend Sharon reading the story. And she does an amazing job. But I don't know if it's... I know that Troy did want the people that contributed to the Garbology to read their Garbology stories. And I know Jim was going to do that. But I mean, Jim's got the best voice on BookTube, hasn't he? But I was going to try and do that. So I might do that as well, but I'll probably do that as a pre-recording thing. But I thought I'd do this as a live thing because then I thought I might be able to talk to you guys as well at the same time. And obviously, I think was it Brian both times? Yeah, Brian has quoted back some of it, which is nice. So so yeah, that's it, really, I suppose. Should I have read more of it? I don't know. It seems like I wasn't intending to read like masses. I wanted to whet your appetite, really, but then I also think it's a bit odd that I've done a 35-minute stream when there are streams on my channel that are like 5 hours. But oh, I've got a question from Diane. How long did it take me to write it? So it took me. When I wrote this, I gave myself a bit of a mission. I did. This was the second novel, so the first novel was Out Among the Ice Beacons, and when I first started doing that one, I gave myself a kind of a challenge, if you like, a goal, and that was to try and do 3,000 words a night. And if I got less than that one night, I'd try and do more than that. So it ended up as an average of 3,000 words a night. And I think the first book is 70 something thousand words. This is about 80,000 words. It's slightly bigger than the other book. And this took me about a month and a half, I guess, to write. And I did keep it up. I managed to just, I think I wrote this one quicker than the other one. The other one was a bit of a challenge because it's a little bit more serious. It's still funny. The dialogue is still funny. The three boys that are the main characters in the other book there's a lot of banter. They're kind of being sarcastic at each other, and there's a bit of a light tone to the dialogue, but they do get into really serious situations. Whereas this is fully intended to make you laugh for the whole thing. So I found it easier to write. So I wrote it quicker, but it did take me about 6 weeks, I guess. But also I didn't start writing it until I'd written every beat of the chapters, so I knew what was going to happen in each chapter. So I did a lot of planning as well. So I won't, and I did that with the other book. I'm not going to start writing a book without knowing what happens in the chapters. So I think that I think it was probably 2 months, I suppose, if you include the time when I was setting it all up, planning what was going to happen, what the plot was going to be. And I'd already introduced the characters in this book, so the story in this is 12,000 words, and it is the longest story in it. But I think that took me about a week to write. I guess, it took me about a week to write the story that they first appear in, and you end up just wanting to finish it. You end up being really, you get really involved. If it's going well. I mean, I think there's a short story that I wrote which I had to keep forcing myself to go back to because I was really struggling with it. But if it's going well, you can't wait to get back into it, and you're really enjoying the process. So, and I think hopefully it's reflected in the book, because that short story I was talking about, I'm not really certain how successful it is, because I think I can see it on the page that it's a little bit more labored, whereas it feels like the stories that I think have been more successful, not economically but artistically, I feel like they were they sort of flowed better, and they came out of my head better. So I do think it's reflected in the story. I don't know if you can relate to that. And to be fair, some of my most popular songs were written quite quickly. So you don't necessarily have to. Sometimes the something you work on, certainly with songs, the songs you work on the longest aren't necessarily the most popular ones. Sometimes they're the least popular ones. And obviously a novel's different, but I think what was good about this book, and for most of the time the other novel, is that it kept flowing. The creativity kept flowing. I didn't really get into a stumbling block where I was like, I don't know what to do with that. Oh, there was one thing in the other book where I actually asked some advice from a friend. I forgot all about that. So it wasn't even like a close friend. This was someone online, and I said to them, I wanted to create this particular device in the story. I had an idea, and it was like, is that going to work? And then they were like, oh yeah, that would work if you did this with it, and that was quite cool actually. They made me feel better about the idea, and it kind of solidified it a bit. So yeah, there was a moment in the other book where I was like, oh, hold on a minute, and that paused me for a little while. But with this one, possibly because it's so ludicrous, there wasn't any moment like that, and it just felt like every scene I'd set up, every development in the plot was another opportunity to do something stupid. I mean, there's a bit where before the big climax of the book, they have to get some weapons, but the weapons they get, they kind of weaponize their instruments, and they're not like normal weapons. So I had a lot of fun with that. So I think it's just a bit of fun. So that's the Brown Yelp game. Does that answer your question, Dan? I think it did. How long did it take? Yeah. So I don't know if I'd always be able to do that. Stick to that 3,000 words a night thing. That was ambitious. But I think the thing is as well, I know that if I did it slower, I probably wouldn't finish it because is it Margaret Pinyard calls me chaotically creative, and I think I am quite chaotically creative. So I'd probably start something else if I left it too long. So it's kind of being self-aware, knowing that that's the way it would work, and it wouldn't work, knowing my personality if I didn't do that. I think so. I think that's part of it. So, but I always when I'm doing it, I'm always reading back on what I'm doing constantly, and I think that helps. So yeah. Thanks, Diane. So I think I'll probably leave it there. I don't know if this has been a good idea. I could read another bit of it another time. I don't know. Could I read another bit? I don't know. And it needs context, doesn't it? Does it need context? Does life need context? I don't know. Hold on. I'm just wondering whether to read another bit. Oh yeah, okay. So this is them meeting. This is them meeting the first gangster / music promoter in it. I think is it that? I think it's that. I was going to read this bit. I'll read a little bit more. See if this goes down all right. Okay. Jenkins' concentration, flying the shuttle to Bragel, was interrupted by Trent's left head shouting from the back of the shuttle. So who's opening for us tonight, Jenkins? Oh, a bit different tonight, Jenkins replied, still looking ahead, but shouting to the back of the shuttle. Different how? Trent asked. It's a family band. Could be interesting. What family? It's the Bickle family band. They're famous for all their songs being built around them arguing. Sounds crazy. Trent was still shouting above the game of squirrel, duck, squirrel above the sound of the engine and to project his voice to Jenkins' seat at the front. Yeah, they're more like an anti-family band, really. I've seen them before. It's a bit of a mess. Jenkins laughed as he said this. Why the hell did you book them as support? Trent asked, confused as Jenkins' damning of the band. They're fans. They said they would do it for nothing, just to say they played with us. I couldn't turn that down. Besides, they're big around here. Takes all sorts, Trent shouted. Take some sauce? Jenkins was confused by what he heard. Takes all sorts, Trent shouted even louder. Oh, right, absolutely. I was going to say, not sure what you do with sauce. Clean your ears out with it, Trent mumbled to himself, facetiously. Trent returned to the game of squirrel, duck, squirrel. He had been out of the game so long he was now back at square one as a duck, while the others had surpassed the squirrel stage and were now horses. Jenkins smiled to himself as he thought about the chaos of the Bickle family band and what might happen at the gig tonight. Riff continued to play guitar. Less than an hour after the short conversation about the Bickle family, they arrived at the spaceport of Bragel. It was a busy port, as this was one of the most popular trading areas on Corsilia. This was also the city with the highest crime rate and the most complex network of organized crime on the planet. The drug and gun barons in Bragel could get you anything and would double-cross the deal in a heartbeat if they could profit from it. The nefarious residents of Bragel had their own codes and their own moral compass. A few months of living in Bragel would bring a normality to that amorality that could scar you for life. As the band left the shuttle and wandered out of the main docking bay and into the city streets of Bragel, they could all sense the fear and heightened tension in the streets. People shouting across at each other from different sides of the street, vehicles clashing into one another, on the road and in the air just above them. Gunfire in the distance, security forces chasing criminals down the street around them, long scowls coming from the people serving street food as they passed them. It was the middle of the day before the cover of darkness descended on Bragel, and it already felt like a dangerous, unpredictable place to do business. The idea of putting on a gig in front of an audience populated by these people they were passing was giving them more trepidation the more they thought about it. Jenkins was walking at the front, as he knew where the venue was. Deep was just behind him. So you say this place we're playing is really friendly? Deep was fishing for reassurance. I wouldn't say friendly, but it will pay us well. So not friendly at all. Deep was really trying hard for reassurance. Not really. Jenkins wasn't as blunt as this when he was selling the gig to them the previous night. We're nearly there. We'll just say hello, find our green room, see if the crew are there yet with the gear. They carried on walking for a few minutes longer. The occasional sudden sound like a bomb, a scream, or a block of plaster from a building falling in front of them put them on edge. But soon enough, they were at the venue, the sinking wharf. To the right, behind the venue, they could see the sea stretching out into the unknown. Despite the dangerous location, the sea maintained its usual appeal and romantic spirit. The band gazed at it with the eyes of landlocked musicians. That looks really spectacular, doesn't it? DK said to the rest of the band. It sure does, Deeks, Trent agreed, patting him on the shoulder as he caught up with him. Well, we'll probably have time for a proper look later. Let's just say hello first. Jenkins mobilized the band and motioned to open a door to the venue. He was suddenly halted by Trent tapping on the shoulder. What's the matter, Trent? Jenkins asked. Look over there. Trent pointed to a Basque lizard selling brown Yelp Gang shirts on the pavement a few yards away from the venue. Jenkins was determined to get to the venue and meet the promoter and settle in, but this had to be investigated. He motioned to the rest of the band, who had now latched on to where Trent was pointing. Well, let's go have a look, Jenkins said with a smile. And as they walked over to the shirt vendor, his tail stopped swishing and his face turned very serious, thinking they were going to turf him off the pitch and away from the venue completely. In fact, they were more interested to see what he was selling. They were bitterly disappointed. Mate, Riff said, pointing to one of the shirts. That one says Brown Yell Gang. The rest of the band groaned. The bar vendor was embarrassed. And what's that? Trent was appalled by another shirt that says, Where is your hair? It's How is your hair, dummy? The vendor was getting more upset the more they pointed out his terrible mistakes. You got 6 designs here and 3 of them are mistakes, Deet scoffed. Here you got an image from the first album with the title of the last one. You cock, Riff added needlessly. The already insecure and hugely intimidated street vendor ran off down the street crying. Jenkins saw the opportunity immediately. Right, he turned to the band. Teddy, you guard this bunch of shit shirts. I'm going to get one of the crew to sell them so we can add the credits to the debt fund. Good thinking, Mr. James, Trent said, smiling. Really? Deep wasn't impressed. Do you want Plaque to die? Jenkins barked dramatically. Well, no. Deep considered himself chastised. Teddy stayed with the shit shirts and the band went into the venue. Jenkins leading them as he knew the promoter from way back and ultimately was the right person to speak to the staff. Hi, we're the band for tonight. The Brown Yep Gang, the hapless security guard asked. No, the Brown Yelp Gang. Jenkins was now starting to get impatient. Oh, yeah, sorry, I don't really listen to your kind of music. Charming, Aria said under her breath. What kind of music do you listen to? Jenkins asked, making conversation to ease the tension as they were led up the stairs. Carillion opera, mainly. That's interesting. That is generally one of our influences. The songs they write mix the tones of Carillion opera with Mappist rock, fused with Calpian rage and Movine traditional melodies. The security guard released a sound that was the auditory translation of him trying to work out what that would sound like. It's a toxic mix that you can't get enough of once you've heard it, Riff shouted from the back. Once you brown yelp, you never need help picking another track to play. Jenkins couldn't get that sound fluid, however he said it, but he kept trying, thinking it was a good catchphrase. Well, good luck to you all. I guess I'll be hearing this heady mix you're talking about tonight when you're playing in there. His tone of voice hinted at a total lack of excitement about this prospect. They'd reached the top of the stairs and were being directed through the main auditorium. Go through the main room here, and there's a door at the back to the left. Go through that door and up the stairs, and then knock on the door. Ray is in there. They were looking around at the venue as he spoke. The mirrored walls gave a powerful, dazzling effect, making the room look fresh and shiny despite its constant use and age. The band walked through open-mouthed, turning their heads around the whole room as they walked. Trent had the advantage of not needing to turn his head so much, but was equally enamored. Whoa, this is a beautiful venue, Trent's left head said, softly. It's less beautiful in a few hours from now when the ugly crowd starts piling in, the security guard stated, cutting down the glamour of the venue instantly. Fair enough, Trent's right head sniggered, pulling a face that said awkward to the rest of the band. Yeah, can't wait to meet them, Dee added sarcastically. Anyway, I'll see you later. Have a good sound check. The security guard mumbled almost to himself, clearly not starstruck by the gang's presence. And as he walked off, the band watched him go, a little surprised at his demeanour. Well, he was happy, Trent said to the others. Good to get a dose of humility sometimes, I'd say, Ari replied. Not everyone thinks you're a god among men. Yeah, but he does, Dee sniggered, nodding his head in Trent's direction. They all smiled. Trent took it on board and smiled with them. Let's meet this promoter guy and get this sound check started. Trent made a play for changing the subject. Ray is a good man. Today should be a success, Jenkins said, as he led the band through the main auditorium and through the door that led to the next floor. I think I'll leave it there. So, they meet Ray, who's this strange slug-like thing that eats these weird maggot-type things, and he barks at them a lot. So there we go. Let's have a look to see what other people have said. So going back, Margaret's here. Back from my sunbreak and ready for some audiobook recording after a wee snack of toast. Oh, nice. Yeah, this was pretty impromptu. You inspired this, Margaret. Although I should be editing the story that I'm supposed to be doing for that competition, but I thought I'd do this, which is in some ways more productive. Double cross, such a specific feel to that word. Is it American or it feels like it? Double cross. Well, it goes back to the spy times, doesn't it? So, don't know. Yeah, glad the sound's not going robotic. That's good. I don't know, actually. I don't know why it happens, but yeah, I'm glad it hasn't happened. You are right. That would be terrible. Right head, left head. Yeah, I do have quite a lot of fun with the three-headed singer, Trent. I think he's one of my favourite characters. And if I write that sequel, it'll be fun doing his solo album, because in the solo album, it completely falls apart because they're all arguing with them. All three heads are arguing all the time. So that should be fun. So there we go. Thank you, everybody. It looks like the people that were here are still here, so I appreciate that. Whew. So, yeah, you've got a sense of two different bits of the book. It's before the action really gets going, but they've got these gigs they have to do. Yeah, waffle. I think. Oh, hold on. Is there another comment? Oh, there's loads. Oh, so Jam and Earl. Yeah, I tell you what. Maybe the people who animated Toe Jam and Earl would have done Plaque and DK. So Plaque and DK, these guys. Oops, these guys here. Whoop, so yeah, maybe that's the thing. Yeah, and just to bounce off Chris, yeah, the heads do harmony. That's the thing. So that's one of the things that make the Brown Yelp Gang such a great band. That Trent's vocal harmonies are amazing. I kind of had it in my head that they were a bit of a kind of a psychedelic rock thing, and the there are moments when I describe the music in it, and it is quite wild music, but the harmonies are great. So people saying hi. This is not really good to have my finger right in at the camera, is it? Well, there we are. All the cool folk. Yeah. Um, Thanks, Diane. So why do I call it the Brown Yelp Gang? So I wanted to. Well, I'll tell you what. Clearly, this is the second story with these characters, and um, the I don't think I came up with the name of the band until I'd already thought of wanting to do a story about a science fiction music parody thing in this collection, and I knew that the plot of that story is about them having this drug that makes them do loads and loads of gigs, and it all goes a bit wrong, and they're on the run for the drug trafficking and stuff, and that is called No Sleep Till Corsilia. So that's a play on No Sleep Till Hammersmith, which is a Motorhead album, and No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which is Beastie Boys. So No Sleep Till Corsilia, because Corsilia is the planet they play at. So I was kind of playing with that a little bit. So I had all that kind of thing in my head before I came up with the name of the band. And then the name of the band, and therefore the name of this book, The Brown Yelp Gang, I uh, I think it just sounds just really funny. Brown Yelp Gang. Just it's a mix of words. Brown sounds awful, and a yelp is not necessarily the best way of saying a vocal sound. It just sounds to me. There's something about the three words together. I don't know. Um, that's um, that's what I thought. I hope that makes sense. Um, Brown Yelp Gang. I wanted it to be a funny band name. Christopher says hi. And Margaret says for your information, the okay. So the first mention of double cross are in Chicago and Boston. Oh, okay. There we are. So you were right. It's an American thing. In when was that then? So double crossing was before that. Oh, look at that! It's gone all funny. Oh, so that's your fault. You jinxed it. Uh, that's a shame. At least it's not in the reading bit, which is good. Um, uh, yeah. Oh, so it goes back that far. It goes back for 1888. Does America go back that far? Oh, clearly it does. Uh, yeah, that's the intention. It's a bit catchy as well. Rounding up gang. Hopefully, it gives the tone of the book. I wanted the name of the band to give the tone of the book as well. We'll see. Hold on. Before you sort your voice to say this is the voice. Okay. This is the voice of the Mr. Ons. Does that sound good? Yeah, jinxed it. This is the voice of the restaurants. Is it a bit Dalek-y? Exterminate. Does that work? Exterminate. I've no idea what it sounds like. Right. So it's great. What you can do with audio problems. The world is our oysters, people. I've never had oysters. I've always thought oysters looked horrible to eat. So, does anyone love oysters? They look totally unappetizing. So, tell me that you love oysters and that I'm crazy. I should have eaten some. Almost there. I don't know what. Don't know if is it back yet. Is it back now? If it was almost there, it'd be nice if it's back. Yeah, exactly. Oysters look nasty, like snot. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not really sure. Hold on. Well, yeah. I did do that one time when I was doing a stream with Dave. I did. I think I started hitting the phone, thinking it might fix it, but it didn't fix it. I think. Oh, it's back. Am I back? Did it actually work by hitting it? Oh. Oh, okay. Somebody loves oysters. Chris loves oysters. I could have had oysters in New Orleans, but couldn't bring myself to do it. But I did have some other things. I did have some New Orleansy food. Um, there used to be. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm ignoring Aaron. So Aaron says I'm too poor to have oysters or ostriches. I'll tell you what. I've been making so many errors writing and live streams lately. And just I look like an absolute idiot with these like spelling errors and stuff. Never mind. Margaret says they used to be poor people's food. I just like lobster. What was the other one? I don't know. Oh, it's a salmon. I love salmon. I really love salmon. I could eat. I could eat salmon until the cows come home. Yeah, that's a phrase and a half, isn't it? I could eat salmon until the cows come home. No. Margaret says no. Margaret, you're arguing with yourself. Do you mean to do that? I think Margaret's having an episode. But I do love salmon. And I have salmon quite a lot when I go to restaurants. I always like look for I'll have something different. Oh, I'll just have salmon. So if you'd missed the beginning of the live stream, which some of you might have done, I bit my lip for some stupid reason, and it feels really weird. It feels like my mouth is twice the size as it actually is. What happens when you start with characters and multiple heads? With multiple heads. Well, that's the thing. One of the things that it's a little bit of I've caused a problem for myself because I can do it sometimes, but in general, I have to say which head is speaking. If it's, I find that on like quick quips or quick replies, or if the rhythm of the scene works, I don't have to say which head it is. But sometimes they're talking to each other, and sometimes I think the right head was a little bit more mopey than the other two heads, from what I remember. So you do end up having to keep talking about which head it is, which is not natural. It's not natural to do that. Usually people have only got one head, so you don't have to do that. But I have to do that for that book, and I'll have to do it for the next book. I'll have to do that in a big way in the next book if he's going to have a massive fight with himself in a studio. I mean, Lazy Riff was fun to write because he literally is a stereotyped lead guitarist who's not listening to what's going on around him. So he's he is the only human in the whole thing. He's the human character. So there we are. Margaret said, random article says salmon is one of those foods. So I guess one of me was right. One of which foods? Random article says salmon is one of those foods. It's one of what foods? Oh, poor people's food. You say poor people's food. Ah, um, that's interesting because salmon's quite expensive now, so it's definitely not poor people's food now. Certainly expensive over here. Is it not expensive in America? It's expensive over here. I don't have salmon very often from the supermarket, and if I do, it's usually because it's been reduced. Um, oh, now it's not bountiful and cheap. Yeah, it definitely isn't in this country. Uh, it's a bit of a treat if we buy salmon from the supermarket, which my wife does sometimes. She knows I like salmon. Sometimes she'll come and go, "I'll get you some salmon." I go, "Oh, that's amazing. Thanks a lot." And she'll go, "No worries, mate. Have your salmon." Thanks, darling. This is not how we talk. Hold on. Did she write any songs specifically for the book? Include lyrics in the book? Um, that's a good shout, actually. There are, I think. Hold on. If I'm going crazy, I'm pretty sure there are passages. Hold on. Is there? I think it might be in. Oh no, yeah. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, clearly, I didn't go to town on this. There is a bit where "Show Me Where You Put It." There's a song called "Show Me Where You Put It," and it's that repeated. The song's called "Show Me Where You Put It," and the lyrics are "Show me where you put it. Show me where you put it. Show me where you put it. I've been looking for hours. Show me where you put it. Show me where you put it. Show me where you put it. I'm in need of it now." Um, that's one of the songs. So yeah, I've written lyrics in there, but I'm not. I don't think I was trying to write the best lyrics I've ever written. I'm trying to write funny lyrics. Um, they're not the sort of lyrics I write for my own band. It's got to be said. Um, what else is there? Is there another set of lyrics? Oh, there is a song called "I Bet You'll Even Look Good in a Cocoon." Yeah, he was humming the song. "I bet you'd even look good in a cocoon," one of his favorite of his own songs. This was Riff. He was humming that. Um, so you can tell that I enjoyed writing it because I keep laughing whenever I say the titles of the songs. Um, when they start playing, there's a chant at one point. A crowd starts chanting when they're playing. When the Brown Up Gang are playing, the crowd start chanting, "You're all crap and have been for years," which is clearly not great. Um, oh yeah, Dr. Schoenberg is the guy that they get the weapons from. It's all coming back to me. I do like talking about this. It's nice, isn't it? I wrote this 5 years ago. There's a one of the venues they play at. It's called the Speckled Interruption. Anyway, let's go back to the picture to the comment. So yeah, I'll picture you and might be talking about that. She's appeared a couple of times very quickly at our things. Yeah. So I could write more lyrics and do it if I did if I did actually write the sequel to this and I did a special edition with both books and some lyrics. That might be quite cool. I did get really excited at one point to make a trailer for the book by recording some music that was going to be the Brown Yelp Gang, and then And at the time, he's not my bass player anymore, but the guy that was playing bass in Bemis at the time was really up for it, and also the drummer was. And we were gonna get something going, and I know my son would have been up for it, and we were going to record this with some psychedelic music and then do it and then pretend that was actually the Brown Yelp Gang. So that is quite a nice idea. I'd still like to do that, to be fair, but it seems like such a long time ago I did it. So yeah, don't know if that's necessarily a good idea, but that is what Dolly Parton did with her new book. She wrote the album that were the songs that were featured in the book. But I don't know. Does anyone want to hear the Warm and Tasty album? The big hit that's mentioned a lot in the first story, the thing that made them really famous, was their song "How Was Your Hair," and it's like a really long song, and they did it as a joke, and that became a massive hit for them. I'm talking about them like they existed. They exist in here. But anyway, that's the Brown Yelp Gang. Two excerpts read from the book, with some chat with my friends, and time to put the kettle on and have another cup of tea, I think. So thank you everybody for allowing me to do this. If no one had turned up, I probably would have stopped. So I do appreciate it, and we'll see if that now, because I've just done that, the book becomes a bestseller, and I am swamped in offers for it to be published legitimately, put in all the shops, maybe even a tribute band being formed of the Brown Yelp Gang, and people recording "How Was Your Hair" themselves. Oh, I've got some more comments. Yeah, thank you. Call me weird. I've always wanted to get booed. Yeah, well, thankfully, I don't know what that's like, but I have done gigs in front of like 3 people before, though, and that's a joy. Thanks, guys, and see you later.